Dear viewers, I welcome you to this module. My name is John Bukenya. I'm a student at Arizona State University pursuing a master's degree in learning, design, and technology. Allow me to share my screen so that we move at the same pace. In this presentation, I am applying Gilbert's behavior engineering model, which is commonly known as BEM, to the EduCore Dynamics Case Study. In this role, I'm approaching the case as a director of learning design who has been asked to determine whether the company's performance problems require training, non-training solutions, or a blended intervention. The central argument of the presentation is that training should not be the starting assumption. EduCore is experiencing missed deadlines, quality concerns, communication strain, morale issues, and workflow frustration around task sync. These problems require a systematic needs assessment before any solution is selected. Gilbert's behavior engineering model is useful because it helps separate environmental barriers from individual knowledge and skill gaps. This distinction is important because employees may be willing and capable, but still unable to perform well if the work system, tools, expectations, and feedback mechanisms are poorly designed. This slide, the second one, summarizes the performance problem using the key case indicators. EduCore's difficulty is not isolated to one metric. 62% of projects are delayed, and the average delay is 10 business days. Two major clients have requested revisions connected to clarity, visual consistency, and brand fit. At the same time, 41% of creative staff report feeling disconnected from project goals, while 38% say communication is frustrating or unclear. These figures show a performance system under strain. Task sync was introduced to improve visibility, but it has instead become part of the problem because staff report overlapping templates, redundant data entry, and inconsistent tagging. Therefore, EduCore is dealing with a linked performance problem: delays, rework, morale, communication, and software friction, which are reinforcing one another. A needs assessment model is necessary because the case does not simply ask us to design a training program. It asks us to determine whether an instructional intervention is necessary at all. Leadership is unsure whether the root causes are lack of training, unclear communication, role confusion, poor workflow design, workload distribution, or task sync configuration. Without a model, the organization could easily confuse symptoms with causes. Delays, rework, low morale, and software frustration are visible symptoms, but they do not automatically prove that employees lack knowledge or skill. A good model helps us move from case evidence to diagnosis, then diagnosis to need type, and finally to an evidence-based solution. This presents the common mistake of prescribing training when the real problem lies in the environment. Gilbert's behavior engineering model was selected because it offers a practical diagnostic lens for separating environmental supports from individual repertoire. The environmental side includes information, resources, or tools, and incentives or consequences. These factors ask whether employees have clear expectations, adequate tools, sufficient feedback, and meaningful reinforcement. The individual side includes knowledge or skills, capacity, and motivation. These factors ask whether employees know how to perform, are capable of performing, or are willing or confident enough to perform. EduCore's case fits behavior engineering model very well because the evidence points to both sides, but especially to the environment. Employees may need targeted training, yet their performance is also constrained by unclear workflows, task sync inefficiencies, weak feedback loops, and communication breakdowns. Behavior engineering model analysis, diagnosis. The case points first to the environment. Here, the case evidence is presented into 6 BEM categories. Information problems appear in unclear task sync conventions, unclear project goals, uncertain handoffs, and unclear role responsibilities. Resource and tool problems are especially strong because overlapping templates, redundant data entry, and inconsistent tagging reduce workflow visibility. Incentives are a moderate concern because the case does not show clear reinforcement for deadline discipline, quality, or collaboration. Knowledge and skills are also relevant, especially around task sync use, brand standards, and cross-team workflow. Capacity may be a concern if workload distribution became unrealistic during the platform transition. Motivation is also affected because frustration and disconnection lower morale. The conclusion is that training is needed, but it should follow environmental redesign rather than precede it. Performance gap 1, which is missed deadlines, is what I talk about in this slide. This is the first major performance gap, missed deadlines. The case shows that 62% of projects are late by an average of 10 business days. The model helps us avoid assuming that employees are simply slow or untrained. Instead, we examine likely causes. From the information perspective, staff may not have clear priorities, handoff rules, tagging conventions, or project setup standards. From the resources perspective, task sync may be adding unnecessary steps through duplicate data entry and confusing templates. From the capacity perspective, workload distribution may not match the demands of the new workflow. Training does not have a role. Training does have a role, but it should focus on the redesigned standard workflow after the templates and project conventions have been simplified. Otherwise, training may teach staff how to cope with a broken process. The second gap is inconsistent quality. 2 major clients requested revisions because of clarity issues, visual inconsistency, and missed brand requirements. The model, behavior engineering model, shows that this problem is not only a skills issue, it may reflect information gaps where brand requirements are not clear enough or are not presented at the right point in the workflow. It may also reflect resource gaps where staff lack standardized quality checklists or brand compliance templates. There may also be knowledge gaps in how to apply visual and brand standards consistent across client products. The recommended response is therefore blended. Create a standard pre-delivery quality checklist, build brand compliance templates, and then provide a short refresher on quality standards. The environmental tools should guide performance before training, asks employees to remember everything. Performance gap 3 is task sync as a workflow barrier. The third performance gap concerns task sync itself. The platform was intended to improve visibility, but current design appears to create friction. The problem chain begins with overlapping templates, continues through redundant data entry, leads to inconsistent tagging and results in less time for meaningful project work. In the BEM terms, the primary cell is resources and tools because the platform and the templates are interfering with performance. The secondary cell is information because staff lack clear conventions for tagging and project setup. The recommended immediate intervention is to simplify templates, standardize tagging, remove duplicate entry points, create job aids, and pilot the improved setup before scaling it. Training should wait until the tool has been redesigned because training people on a flawed system may only normalize inefficiency. The fourth gap focuses on morale and communication. Low morale should be treated as a performance issue, not just as an attitude problem. 41% of creative staff feel disconnected from project goals, and 38% report that communication is unclear or frustrating. These concerns involve information, incentives, and motivation. Staff need project briefs that connect their tasks to the client's goals and company's priorities. They also need communication norms that clarify whether updates leave who is responsible for updating them, and when risks should be escalated. Incentives and recognition should reinforce collaborative behavior, not only individual task completion. Training alone will not repair morale if the everyday work experience remains frustrating, unclear, and inefficient. Training versus non-training needs. Now, in this slide, I separate training needs from non-training needs. EduCore does not need some training, but it must be targeted and timed correctly. Training should cover task sync after templates and tags are standardized. It should also include refreshers on client brand standards, quality review procedures, and project lead coaching on cross-functional milestones. However, the non-training needs are more urgent. EduCore must reconfigure task sync templates and tagging roles, define handoffs and escalation paths, review workload distribution, and create checklists, dashboards, job aids, and recognition routines. The decision rule is simple. When the gap is caused by unclear expectations, poor tools, weak feedback, or workload pressure, training alone is not sufficient. The work system must be redesigned to support the performance expected. Why the model is stronger than Kaufman's organization elements model for this case of EduCore. Both behavior engineering model and Kaufman's organization elements model are useful needs assessment models, but they serve different purposes. Kaufman's OEM is especially useful when an organization needs broad strategic alignment across mega, macro, micro, process, and input levels. That broader view can be valuable, but EduCore's immediate question is more specific. Is an instructional intervention necessary, or should other performance supports be prioritized? BEM gives a clear answer because it directly separates environmental factors from individual knowledge, skill, capacity, and motivation. For this case, the strongest causes are internal workflow problems, unclear communication, and tool design issues. Therefore, the behavior engineering models is the stronger fit for deciding what should be trained and what should be redesigned. Now, in this slide, I talk about the strengths and limitations of behavior engineering model. BEM is strong because it prevents a premature, more trained conclusion. It works well when performance problems have multiple symptoms, and it offers a simple 6-cell structure that leaders can use to diagnose evidence and select interventions. It also supports practical decision-making because each cell points toward a different kind of solution. However, BEM also has limitations. It does not fully address broader organization strategy, client market positioning, or culture change. It also does not prescribe a complete step-by-step data collection process. Morale and communication concerns may require additional change management tools. Therefore, BEM should be used as the main diagnostic lens, while interviews, workflow observation, data review, systems thinking, and change management planning should strengthen implementation. Now, in my last slide, I talk about evidence-based recommendations. And here I give a 90-day action plan. The recommended response is a 90-day action plan that begins with environmental redesign and moves towards targeted training. During days 1 to 15, EduCore should diagnose and simplify the workflow by cleaning task sync templates, removing duplicate data entry, and validating workflow pain points. During days 16 to 35, the company EduCore should pilot the improved workflow by defining handoffs, communication norms, escalation triggers, and role responsibilities. During days 36 to 60, EduCore should train targeted roles using short scenario-based training on the redesigned workflow and quality procedures. During days 61 up to 90, the organization EduCore should evaluate results and scale the improved system. This sequence matters because employees should be trained on the improved process, not the broken one. Evaluation measures. Evaluation should be built into the intervention from the beginning. EduCore should track results, workflow health, and people experience. For timelines, the target is to reduce late projects from 62% to below 25% within 2 quarters. For cycle time, the goal is to reduce the average delay from 10 business days to about 3 to 4 business days. For quality, the company should reduce client-requested revisions related to brand and clarity. For task sync use, the goal should be consistent templates and tags in more than 90% of active projects. For morale, EduCore should improve goal connection and communication survey results by 15 to 20 points. Finally, staff should report that task sync supports rather than obstructs project work. In conclusion, EduCore needs a blended intervention led by systems redesign. The first principle is do not begin with the training, begin with the performance system. The second principle is fix task sync and workflow. Then train the new standard. The third principle is measure deadlines, quality, software use, and morale to confirm whether performance is improving. Gilbert's BEM is the best fit because it classifies causes across information, resources, incentives, knowledge, capacity, and motivation. The case evidence suggests strong environmental barriers, including unclear workflows, poor task sync configuration, inconsistent communication, and weak feedback loops. Targeted training is appropriate, but only after the work environment has been redesigned to support the performance which EduCore company expects. Thank you very much. That is the end of the presentation.